The radio crackled to life at exactly 9:47 p.m. on Monday, October 22, 2012. I was filling out paperwork at the Lackawanna County Sheriff's Department when the dispatcher sent the code that would make any detective's blood run cold. Possible murder, missing child. The address was Throop, Pennsylvania, a quiet apartment complex where mostly Indian immigrant families lived peacefully, striving for the American dream. As I drove through the dark streets toward the crime scene, my mind raced through protocol. 23 years on the force had taught me that homicides involving families with missing children were often the most brutal and complicated. Lockhart's principle of exchange echoed in my head. Every contact leaves a trace. I will need to find those traces. The apartment building came into view, a modest 3-story complex with warm lights shining from most of the windows. But apartment 2B was different. Even from the parking lot, I could see unusual activity. Patrol cars, an ambulance, and 2 figures standing outside, clearly distressed. I approached the couple, Venkataka Prasad Vyas and his wife, Kinyalata Pinuru. Both software engineers, both in their 30s, they were devastated. Venkataka's hands shook as he tried to explain what they had found when they returned home from work. The husband spoke in broken English, his voice barely above a whisper. We came home. A normal evening, but the house was so quiet. No children crying, no grandmother singing. His words trailed off as reality hit him again. My first thought was to analyze over time. Establishing a timeline would be important. I took out my notebook and began the methodical note-taking process that would form the basis of this investigation. Entering the apartment, the metallic scent of blood immediately assaulted my senses. It was a smell you never got used to, no matter how many crime scenes you had worked on. I followed the trail of evidence toward the kitchen, where the main scene awaited. Major crime scene analysis. Satyavati, 61, lay motionless on the kitchen floor. The blood spatter told a tale of violence and struggle. As I knelt beside the body, careful not to disturb the scene, I observed a deep, clean cut across the throat, possibly from a single edge blade. Defensive wounds on the hand and forearm. The blood sample showed that she died where she fell. No signs of sexual assault. Her gold jewelry was still intact. This was not a botched robbery. The killer had a specific purpose. They found Satyavati, 61, lying motionless on the kitchen floor. Her throat had been slit and her sari was soaked in blood. Preserving the crime scene was crucial. I immediately called the forensic team and began taking photos from every angle. The way Satyavati's body was positioned suggested that she had been facing her attacker, someone she knew and trusted enough to let into the apartment. But where is 10-month-old Sanvi? While the forensics team processed the main scene, I began a systematic search of the apartment. It was Officer Martinez who found the first piece of paper, a folded piece of white paper deliberately placed on the coffee table where it couldn't be missed. My hands, protected by rubber gloves, carefully unfolded what would become the key piece of evidence in this case. The handwriting was deliberate, the words cold. Shiva, your daughter has been kidnapped. If you call the police, she will be chopped into pieces if you tell anyone. Her body parts will be found all over the house. We will be watching you every second. Every call and text you send is being monitored. If you want your daughter to live, you have to do exactly what we say. We need $50,000 by tonight. Take your wife Lada to a quiet place. If we find out you or anyone else is with Lada, your daughter will be found dead. This is no joke. You have to choose your daughter or your hard-earned 5 months of money by 8 p.m. tonight. Lada has to come alone to your sports complex with $50,000 in cash. When our people get the money, we will call and tell you where to find your daughter. If anyone tries to be smart, they will be the reason why your daughter died. Prepare the money before 8 p.m. On time. No excuses, no delays, and remember your daughter has been hungry since morning. Reading those words sent a chill down my spine. But something immediately struck me as odd. The level of personal detail. The kidnapper knew the family's nicknames, their habits, the layout of their apartment. This was no coincidence. A psychological profile began to form in my mind. Organized crime. Planning is evident in many notes. Personal knowledge. Using family nicknames shows intimacy. Desperation is growing. Threats become more specific and violent. Time pressure. The 8 p.m. deadline shows external pressure on the perpetrator. As we continued our search, We discovered 10 more notes hidden throughout the apartment, under mattresses, in drawers, even taped inside closets. This level of preparation suggests premeditation, not crime of opportunity. Forensic analysis of the handwriting will take days, but I can already see patterns. The writing shows signs of stress. Pressure increases as the writer progresses. Some of the letters are a little shaky. This person is nervous, probably inexperienced with this level of crime. Although we were a little hesitant to negotiate with the kidnappers, the family's desperation was clear. With Sanvi's life at stake, we couldn't ignore the ransom demand. I coordinated with our tactical team to set up surveillance around the sports complex mentioned in the note. Setting up the operation is very complicated. Plainclothes officers were posted at strategic observation positions. The car had no license plate and had radio communication. Kenyatta in the parking lot with a bag of cash requested. Sniper range from adjacent buildings. As 8 p.m. approached, tension filled the air like electricity before a storm. I positioned myself with a clear view of the exchange point, my radio blaring out updates from the other members of the group. 8 p.m. passed, then 8:30. 9 o'clock, 9:30. No one showed up. The silence was deafening. In my experience, a failed ransom exchange usually means one of two things. Either the kidnapper was frightened by the presence of the police, or something terrible had happened to the victim. Standing there in the parking lot, watching Kenyatta clutching her purse with desperate hope in her eyes, I felt the weight of the case on my shoulders. Somewhere out there, a 10-month-old baby was counting on us to bring her home safely. By Tuesday morning, news of the kidnapping had spread throughout Pennsylvania's Native American communities. The response was overwhelming. Volunteers organized search parties, local businesses offered rewards, temples held vigils. One individual who stood out among those who helped, Ragunan Yanduri, a neighbor in the same apartment building. He seemed genuinely distressed by the crime and immediately offered to help. I watched him carefully as he organized the search efforts. There was something about individuals being so helpful at a crime scene that always made me wary. Sometimes the perpetrator inserted himself into the investigation to monitor progress or mislead the authorities. But Ragunan was sincere. He used his office printer to create more than 200 missing children posters, coordinated with local Indian restaurants to deliver food to the family, and even offered to translate for older community members who wanted to help but didn't speak English. Character rating: male, about 28 years old. Software engineer, originally from Andhra Pradesh. Live in the same building as the victim. Known to family through community gatherings. Seems emotionally invested in finding Sanvi. However, I made a mental note to verify his whereabouts at the time of the crime. In cases involving missing children, everyone is a suspect until proven otherwise. On Wednesday, October 24th, our forensics team made a discovery that would prove pivotal to the entire investigation. While examining the ransom notes under a magnifying glass, our document analyst, Detective Sarah Chun, called me to her workstation. "Look here," she said, pointing specific words on the ransom note. The writer always uses the victim's nickname instead of their legal name. Shiva instead of Venkataka, Lada instead of Kenyatta. Their meaning hit me immediately. Those nicknames weren't common knowledge. Only close friends and family members knew them. This narrowed our suspect pool considerably. Shifting focus of investigation, I immediately began compiling a list of individuals with intimate knowledge of this family. Immediate family member, except due to alibi. Best friend from work. Neighbors in the apartment complex. Members of the local Indian community center. Anyone who has attended recent family gatherings. The use of nicknames also reveals something about the perpetrator's psychological state. It suggests a level of familiarity that makes the crime more personal and potentially more devastating for the victim. Criminal psychology assessment. The depth of insight combined with the brutality of the crime suggests someone was experiencing severe psychological distress, perhaps financial pressure, substance abuse, or other life stresses that pushed them beyond the bounds of normal behavior. Thursday afternoon came the call every detective expects and fears in a missing child case. The voice on the phone belonged to Marcus Thompson, a part-time worker at the apartment complex's fitness center. "Detective, there's something here that doesn't belong," Marcus said, his voice shaking. "A blue bag near the check-in counter. It's been here since yesterday, and no one's claimed it. Something about it. It doesn't seem right. I was at the gym within minutes. My partner, Detective Rodriguez, right behind me. The blue bag lay harmlessly by the front desk. Nothing obviously suspicious about its appearance. But Marcus's instincts warranted investigation. Evidence collection protocol. Before touching anything, I photographed the bag from multiple angles, noting its exact location relative to other objects in the area. The forensic photographer arrived shortly thereafter, ensuring we had comprehensive visual documentation. With gloved hands, I carefully lifted the bag. It was heavier than I expected, not from the weight of clothes or gym equipment. My heart started to race as I slowly unzipped the main compartment. The sight that greeted me would haunt me for the rest of my career. Little Sanvi's body was wrapped carefully in a thin blanket, her small face serene as if she were simply sleeping. But the medical examiner's initial assessment confirmed our worst fears. She had been dead for at least 48 hours. Take immediate action, secured the scene, and called for additional forensic assistance. Record everything before moving the victim. Begin processing the bag for fingerprints, DNA, and trace evidence. Coordinate with medical examiner for a priority autopsy. Prepare to break this heartbreaking news to your family. Standing there in the gym, watching this innocent child trapped in a web of adult despair and violence, I felt the familiar determination that drives every detective in moments like these. This case had just turned from a kidnapping investigation into a double murder, and I was going to find out who was responsible. The autopsy results came back Friday morning, confirming what the initial examination had suggested. Dr. Patricia Williams, our chief medical examiner, delivered her findings with a clinical precision that belied her own emotional reaction to such cases. The autopsy report said Sanvi died of suffocation. She couldn't breathe because there was no air inside the tightly sealed bag. Summary of medical examiner's report. Cause of death: asphyxiation due to airway obstruction. Time of death: approximately 24 to 36 hours before discovery. Contributing factors: fabric material found in the mouth and nasal passages. No signs of sexual assault or other physical trauma. Conclusion: death occurred within 2 to 3 hours of initial abduction. Forensic evidence painted a horrifying picture. Tiny fibers found in Sanvi's airway matched material from a piece of cloth found in the bag, suggesting that the perpetrator had stuffed the cloth in her mouth, possibly to stop her from crying, without considering the fatal consequences. This finding is important to our psychological profile. The killer did not intend to kill the child. This was manslaughter during the kidnapping, indicating panic rather than intentional murder. DNA and fingerprint analysis. The bag contained a number of partial fingerprints, most of which were too faint to identify. However, a clear fingerprint on the zipper would prove necessary. We also collected skin cells from the handle of the bag and some hairs that did not match the victim. While waiting for the DNA analysis, I focused on the building's security system. The apartment complex had installed CCTV cameras 6 months earlier, a practice that initially seemed promising but proved challenging due to the system's limitations. CCTV analysis process. The cameras cover the main entrance and parking lot, but there are some blind spots, including some hallway areas and the back entrance near the gym. I spent several hours reviewing footage from October 22nd, looking for any unusual activity. Key timeline from security footage: 6:15 p.m. Venkataka and Kinyalada go to work. 6:45 p.m. Unknown man enters building through main entrance. 7:30 p.m. Same individual exits through rear entrance carrying blue bag. 8:45 p.m. Venkataka and Kinyalada return home. The individual appeared to be familiar with the layout of the building, avoiding cameras when possible and moving purposefully rather than hesitantly. His face was partially obscured by a baseball cap, but his build and gait suggested he was in his late 20s to early 30s. Digital innovation. Our tech team enhanced the footage, adjusting contrast and brightness to reveal more details. One frame shows the suspect's outline as he turns toward the rear exit. Not clear enough to identify his face, but enough to rule out random strangers. Monday morning brought the breakthrough we had been waiting for. Enhanced CCTV footage, combined with gait analysis software, provided enough detail to aid in identification. I printed out some still frames and prepared them for the victim's family to see. Venkataka and Kinyalada arrived at the station at 10 a.m., their faces the blank expressions of parents who have lost everything. I spread the edited photos out on the conference table, carefully watching their reactions. Documentary. The couple didn't even take a second to respond. But who is this man? Ragunan, Kinyalada whispered, her voice barely audible. That's Ragunan Yanduri from our building. Venkataka stared at the photos in disbelief. But he helped us. He made posters. He organized searches. His voice trailed off as the horrifying truth sank in. Suspect profile, Ragunan Yanduri. Age, 28. Occupation, software engineer. Residence, same apartment building as victim. Relationship, neighbors, occasional social interaction. Known factors, recently attended a family gathering. The betrayal was painful for the family to understand. The man who had stood by them in their darkest hours, who had comforted them and organized community support, was the same man who had destroyed their lives. I wasted no time in obtaining an arrest warrant. By 2 p.m. that same Monday, Detective Rodriguez and I were knocking on Ragunan Yanduri's door. The footsteps inside suddenly stopped as I announced, "Police, open the door." When Ragunan finally opened the door, his face held what I could only describe as resigned dread, the expression of someone who had been waiting for this moment. His apartment was neat and tidy, with no obvious signs of disturbance or destruction of evidence. Arrest documents. Time, 2:17 p.m., October 29th, 2012. Location, apartment 3C, same building as the victim. Charges, kidnapping, first-degree murder, 2 counts. Miranda rights administered at 2:19 p.m. The suspect initially waived his right to an attorney. Throughout the entire ride to the station, Ragunan remained silent, staring out the window with an expression I'd seen before, the look of someone whose world had completely collapsed around them. The interrogation room at the Lackawanna County Sheriff's Department was a stark setup: fluorescent lights, bare walls, a metal table, 3 chairs. I'd conducted hundreds of interviews in that room, but few were as important as this one. Ragunan sat across from me, his hands folded on the table, occasionally glancing at the recording device. For the first hour, he maintained his innocence with surprising calm. "I don't understand why I'm here," he repeated over and over. "I was helping my family. Everyone knows that." Interrogation strategy. Rather than immediately confronting him with the evidence, I start by establishing rapport and allowing him to construct an alibi. This technique often reveals inconsistencies that can be exploited later. "Tell me about your relationship with the Vyas family," I began. "They are good people," Ragunan replied. "We are both from Andhra Pradesh. We always look out for each other here in America." "When was the last time you saw baby Sanvi?" "At Kinyalada's birthday party in September. The baby was so cute." His voice trembled slightly when he mentioned Sanvi, either genuine emotion or clever manipulation. After 2 hours of light questioning, I presented the evidence from the surveillance camera. The change in Ragunan's demeanor was immediate and obvious. His hands began to shake slightly, and his eye contact became sporadic. This footage shows someone leaving the building at 7:30 p.m. on October 22nd, carrying a blue bag, I said, sliding the enhanced photos across the table. "Can you help me identify this person?" Ragunan studied the images for nearly a minute, much longer than it took to make an identification. His breathing became shallow, and small beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. "I can hardly tell from these pictures," he finally replied. "Gait analysis matches your walking style. Body structure matches your physical characteristics. Walking path shows your familiarity with the building layout. The evidence is circumstantial but compelling. More importantly, Ragunan's mental state is deteriorating under pressure." Confession. At 6:47 p.m., after nearly 5 hours of interrogation, Ragunan's composure finally broke. The moment was sudden and complete. His face contorted, and tears began to flow.
1 minute anger, which I haven't controlled myself, because I have a good career, good job, good wife, good parents and everything, but it's only 1 minute of anger which ruined my complete life now.
Okay.
I really feel sorry for what happened. I know the pain the parents and everyone are going through.
Okay.
But Yeah, I know this is not a small mistake and no one will forgive me, but I just want, I don't even have words how to express my.
Okay.
He was addicted to gambling. He lost a lot of money in the casino. Almost all of his salary was wasted on this dangerous habit. His financial situation became very serious. What made things worse was that his wife was pregnant, and she had no idea about the second life he was hiding from her. Ragunan's confession reveals the tragic intersection of addiction, desperation, and poor judgment that led to the double murder. The full story emerges gradually, interspersed with sobs and long silences. Financial crisis. Gambling losses exceed $75,000 in 8 months. Credit cards maxed out. Personal loans default. Threatening calls from casino debt collectors. Pregnant wife puts additional financial pressure. Bank loan application rejected due to debt-to-income ratio. I was drowning, Ragunan explained. Every day I would check the mail hoping for good news, but there were always more bills, more threats. My wife thought everything was normal. She was planning the nursery, talking about our future, targeting decisions. He recalled visiting Chanchalada and her husband. They invited him to a party, treated him very well, and seemed to live a good life. He noticed during that visit there was gold, some cash, and Veena's mother from India was also wearing a lot of gold jewelry. The psychological profile becomes clearer as Ragunan describes his thought process. The Vaya's family was not chosen randomly. They were chosen based on wealth and vulnerability. At Kinyalada's birthday party, I saw the gold jewelry her mother was wearing. Venkataka mentioned that they were saving money to buy a house. They seemed comfortable, successful. Based on Ragunan's confession and physical evidence, I was able to reconstruct the sequence of events that took place on October 22, 2012. Timeline of events. 6:15 p.m. Venkataka and Kinyalada leave for work, following their usual routine. Ragunan, who has been keeping track of their schedule, watches them leave.
In the statement, you admit that on Monday, October 22nd of 2012, you went to apartment C603 of the Marquee Apartments. Is that correct?
Yes.
And who lives in that apartment?
Sanvi and Sanvi's grandmother.
6:30 p.m. Ragunan arrives at the apartment, knowing that only Satyavati and baby Sanvi are inside. His initial plan is simple: threaten the elderly woman, take whatever cash and jewelry is available, and leave.
Okay, so you went to the apartment, you had your note, ransom note, and you had your knife, and you knocked on the door, and Grandmom opened the door?
Yes.
And then what happened?
I showed her like the knife, and she went back to the kitchen.
Okay.
When I showed it, and then I told her clearly that I don't want to harm you, or I don't want to harm the baby. I will treat her nicely, and then I try to take the baby.
Okay.
In the meanwhile, the grandmother came over me.
She came over towards you?
She came over towards me.
Okay.
So I accidentally slipped. The baby slipped from my hand and fell down, and I also fell down on the baby.
You fell down on the baby?
Yeah.
6:45 p.m. The situation turns tense when Satyavati resists and refuses to let him access the family's valuables.
And when you got to the apartment, what did you do?
My intention was not to kill anyone or not to harm anyone. I only tried to kidnap the baby and then tried to have everything in a smooth way. What happened exactly is when I hit the door, the old lady opened the door.
The fight to the death. What happened next turned a robbery into a double murder. Satyavati, protecting her niece, confronted Ragunan when he tried to use Sanvi as leverage to get the money.
Okay, let's stop there, and why don't we demonstrate the beginning part?
Mm-hmm.
And here, this is a plastic knife.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it won't hurt. Okay.
Okay.
So Detective Rathon is going to act like the grandmother. Okay, so stand up for us, and we'll come over here. Okay, and if Annie can go over there. Okay, you come over here. Okay, we'll pretend this is the front. This is the front door.
Okay.
Okay, so Grandmom opens the door.
So let's say grandma opened the door.
And what
I
did
showed
you
it like this.
What did you do?
I showed it like this. I did not talk anything. Grandma went backwards.
She went back into the
She
kitchen?
went back into the kitchen.
Okay, did you
So
say
there was-
anything?
I don't want to harm you, or I don't want to harm the baby. I will look her nicely. Please stay back. Okay, I don't want to harm anyone. I told that.
Okay.
And here is a couch. And in couch there is Sanvi.
Sanvi was sitting on the couch?
Yes.
What was Sanvi wearing that day?
White dress.
She was wearing a white dress. Okay, so Sanvi was on the couch, and what did you do? You said you...
I told this lady like this, and I got to Sanvi. Picked Sanvi. Say, this is Sanvi. I picked Sanvi.
You had Sanvi in your left arm?
Yeah, in my left arm, a knife showing towards the mom,
Right.
my grandmother.
Correct.
On the right hand. Immediately, grandma came towards me, and I was in a tension that time. I sipped the bottle. I'm about to fall. It happened this way,
Okay, so you dropped Sanvi,
and I fell down.
and you fell, and as you were doing that, you can actually demonstrate, you can touch him. There you
like
go.
this, and I
fell.
fell on Sanvi.
Okay, then what did you do?
Immediately, the grandmother collapsed.
When Lada's grandmother tried to stop him and said, "You can't take the baby away," a struggle ensued in fear and anger. Ragunan pulled out a knife and stabbed her in the neck, causing her to collapse to the floor.
Kitchen.
Okay, and what did you do?
So initially, as I don't have the intention to hurt anyone,
Right.
I got so scared. I got so scared, and I don't know what to do. I don't as I fell on the baby started crying.
Okay, was the baby bleeding
Yeah, she had a small injury on the mouth,
on her lip?
on the lip.
Okay, so the
And she
baby was
started
bleeding and
bleeding.
crying?
Baby is crying, and the old lady felt injured. So my situation went worse. Like, I was unable to even think of what is happening. Like, I can say I'm out of control, and I'm in a situation where I can't think of.
Okay, but you weren't on any drugs or alcohol when you did this?
No,
You
I
don't use drugs, you don't drink alcohol?
No.
Okay, so prior to doing this, you were thinking clearly?
Yes.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, get back into the apartment.
So after this, I went to Sanvi and kept her on the couch first. As she's crying, I tried to stop her crying, like putting a kerchief on her mouth.
You put a handkerchief on her mouth, and where did that handkerchief come from?
It's from my pocket.
Your pocket, so you stuck the handkerchief into Sanve's mouth?
Yes.
Okay, and then where did you go?
And then I went to see about her grandmother.
Okay,
She was bleeding by that time, and it's too late. Like, I stopped thinking about the grandmother and got few jewelry present at the home.
okay, so hold on.
Panic stage. After stabbing Satyavati, Ragunan's plan was completely ruined. Instead of running away immediately, panic made him make fatal decisions regarding Sanvi.
Okay,
So
now, go ahead.
after that, I took the knife, the jewelry, and the Sanvi. And
Was Sanve crying at this time?
actually, Sanvi was still crying.
She was still crying, so what did you do to try and make her stop crying?
So, for her not to cry, I kept a kerchief in her mouth.
And did you have to tie it so it wouldn't keep falling out?
No, but when I tied the kerchief, the kerchief maybe I did not tie it properly. The kerchief came out.
Came out?
So I kept two kerchiefs and tied her around her neck to this place, a towel kind of thing.
So you got a towel from the bathroom?
Yes, from the bathroom.
So you got a towel, and you used that towel to keep the handkerchief in place so she couldn't cry?
I tried tying this way, but she's too small. I thought it will be so painful.
Okay.
And so I kept the kerchiefs on the mouth.
Okay.
And I surrounded the head with the towel through the neck, and I tied it hard. But I don't know if that was too tight for her. By the time, after that, I took the suitcase.
And where did you put Sanve?
In the suitcase.
You put her in the suitcase, so you opened up the suitcase and you stuffed her in there?
It's not stuffed, it's a big suitcase.
But you placed her in the suitcase, and then did you zipper it up?
Yeah, half of it.
Half of it? Okay.
He quickly wrapped Sanvi in a cloth, put her in a bag, and rushed out when she started crying. He cruelly stuffed a cloth in her mouth to silence her and ran away.
After you put Sanve in the suitcase, what did you do?
After I put Sanvi in the suitcase, I took the suitcase and came downstairs through the fire exit.
Did you take the knife out of it? Did you take the knife with you?
Yeah, I took the knife.
Okay.
The most heartbreaking part of this case is how preventable Sanvi's death was. Ragunan's confession revealed the tragic chain of events that led to the child's death. The fateful journey.
I opened the suitcase and I took the Sanvi out of the suitcase. By the time I saw her, she's unconscious.
She was unconscious?
I splashed some water on her face, but she did not move.
Did she still have the handkerchief in her mouth and the towel around her head?
When I opened the suitcase, I removed the towel.
You took the towel out?
And I saw if she's conscious, but she's unconscious at that moment.
This detail is important for legal proceedings. Ragunan's actions demonstrated depraved indifference, a legal standard that applies when someone acts with such irresponsibility toward human life that their actions constitute murder, even without specific intent to kill.
Okay. I splashed water on her face, but she did not respond to that.
She didn't respond to the water?
But as all this happened to me unexpected, I was so tense, so I kept Sanvi in the steam room in the gym.
Okay, hold on.
Running away, suddenly something made his heart stop. He realized everything was too quiet. The little girl no longer made any sound. He quickly stopped in a quiet corner, opened a bag to check, and what he saw completely shocked him. The child was not breathing. She had suffocated. Psychological analysis of the moment. Ragunan's reaction to discovering Sanvi's death revealed important aspects of his psychological state. Rather than immediately seeking help or attempting resuscitation, he made the calculated decision to destroy the evidence. "I knew she was gone," he told me in his confession. "I knew nothing could bring her back. All I could think about was not getting caught." This reaction demonstrates a complete moral collapse, the moment when self-preservation overwhelms any remaining humanity. After discovering Sanvi's death, Ragunan's behavior shifts from that of a panicked criminal to that of a calculating strategist. His subsequent actions reveal a disturbing capacity for deception. Gym treatment.
Did you have any blood on you from what happened?
No.
There was no blood on you?
No.
Okay, so you took the knife, Sanvi's in the suitcase, and you took her and you walked down where?
Took the fire exit and came
You went down the fire escape, you walked down the fire escape to what floor?
To the ground floor.
The ground floor, and where'd you go from there?
When I opened the door, it is facing the B building.
So you went to the outside door that's opening to the B building?
Yeah.
Okay, and where'd you go?
From there, if you come to the left, you see the A building.
The A building?
There is a gym in the A building downstairs.
And is that gym on the first floor?
No, it's on the ground floor.
The ground floor, so the window is only maybe this high off the ground?
Yes.
Okay, and what happened?
The window is all open, so I put the suitcase into the gym, and I also went into the gym through that window.
You climbed through the window?
It's not really climb, it's only like 3 feet away from the ground.
Okay.
So I could easily reach it.
So once you're in the gym, Sanvi's in the suitcase in the gym, and you're in the gym?
Yes.
Okay, and what did you do then?
Then after I came to gym, like there are no people in the gym most of the time.
Okay.
Frozen with fear and guilt, he realized he had made a huge mistake, an irreparable mistake, and in a panic, he left the bag near the gym hoping no one would connect it to him.
You left Sanvi in the steam room?
Mm-hmm.
And where did you put her exactly?
In the gym there is a steam room.
And there's a steam room in the gym?
Yeah.
Okay.
I kept her in that room.
In that room? You said you put her on a step? You laid her on a step?
Yeah, I laid her on a wooden step.
Was the handkerchief still in her mouth when you left?
No, I took it off.
The choice of disposal location is telling. Rather than attempting to completely conceal the body, Ragunan left in a location where it would eventually be discovered but not immediately linked to him. This suggests that he still hoped to somehow escape the consequences. Supporting characters. What makes this case particularly troubling is Ragunan's decision to actively participate in the search efforts. In the following days, community volunteer organization, distributing flyers to find missing children, comforting the grieving family, partner with local businesses to earn rewards, act as liaison with the Indian community. Psychological assessment. This behavior demonstrates what psychologists call compartmentalization, the ability to separate different aspects of one's actions and emotions. Ragunan appeared genuinely distressed about Sanvi's disappearance, while simultaneously knowing that he was responsible for her death. Part of me hoped she would be found alive, he admitted in our final interview. I kept thinking maybe I was wrong. Maybe she was just unconscious. This self-deception often occurs in criminals who engage in behaviors that are contrary to their base self-image. By the time Ragunan confessed, we had assembled a comprehensive body of evidence supporting every aspect of his story. Physical evidence. DNA from the blue bag matched Ragunan's saliva. Fingerprints on the zipper of the bag. Fibers from Sanvi's clothes were found in Ragunan's apartment. Murder weapon found in storm drain near building. Digital evidence. CCTV footage shows his movements. Cell phone records show he was at the scene. Computer search for symptoms of asphyxiation performed after crime. Financial records document gambling debts. Testimonial evidence. Multiple community members confirmed his presence at the birthday party. Casino staff recognized his photo. Debt collector confirms threatening contact. Documentary evidence. Handwriting analysis links him to ransom notes. Bank records showing loan applications and rejections. Pregnant wife's medical records. The case was prosecutable without a confession, but Ragunan's detailed account provides important context for understanding the psychological factors that led to this tragedy.
When you took the towel and the handkerchief, what did you do with those items?
I got them into the suitcase.
You put them into the suitcase, and did you take the suitcase with you?
Yeah, I took the suitcase along with me.
Okay, when you got to the Lafayette Valley Forge Apartments on Monday afternoon, what did you do?
I dropped all the evidences into the trash can.
You dropped what into the trash can?
The suitcase which has all the evidences into the trash can.
And inside the suitcase was the hoodie, the
towel, knife, kerchief.
the towel, the handkerchief, all of that evidence was in the blue suitcase which you threw in the dumpster?
Yes.
Okay.
The trial of Ragunan Yanduri began on March 15th, 2013, in Lackawanna County Circuit Court. As the lead detective, I testified for 3 days, guiding the jury through every aspect of the investigation. Prosecution strategy. District Attorney Patricia Chun built her case around 3 key elements. Pre-planning, clear planning and ransom notes, and family supervision. Depraved indifference. The cruel disregard for Sanvi's life during the kidnapping. Community impact. Breach of trust in the Indian immigrant community. Defense argument. Ragunan's court-appointed attorney, Michael Foster, attempted to argue that his capacity was impaired by his gambling addiction and extreme financial stress. The defense strategy focused on mental health issues related to addiction, no intention to kill, cooperate with law enforcement during confession. Main testimony. My testimony focused on the methodical nature of the investigation and the clear evidence of guilt. However, the most impactful moment was when Venkataka took the stand to describe the loss of his daughter and mother-in-law. We welcomed him into our home, Venkataka said, his voice choking. We shared food, celebrations, trust. He took advantage of our kindness to plot our destruction. Decision. After deliberating for 6 hours over 2 days, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all charges. First-degree murder, Satyavati. Second-degree murder, Sanvi. Kidnap. Pillage.
How do you think it went today, Mr. Yanduri? How do you think the trial's going? Do you have any comment, Mr. Yanduri?
After a full trial, the court sentences him to death. But in the United States, even when a death sentence is imposed, it is not imposed immediately. There are many delays such as appeals, legal steps, or changes by the governor. So while the sentence remains in place, the actual execution often takes a long time. Even to this day, he is still on death row. The sentencing phase took place over 3 days in May 2013. Pennsylvania's death penalty law requires both aggravating and mitigating factors to be considered. Aggravating factors: murder and kidnapping, victims under 12 years old, extreme cruelty and depravity, many victims. Mitigating factors: no criminal record, cooperate with law enforcement, mental health issues associated with gambling addiction, expression of regret. Judge Patricia Williams handed down a sentence of appropriate severity for such a case. The defendant's actions represented a complete abdication of human dignity. While the court acknowledges the mitigating factors presented, They pale in comparison to the devastating impact these crimes had on the victims, their families, and the community. Personal reflection. Standing in that courtroom, watching justice being served, I felt the familiar mix of satisfaction and sadness that comes with the conclusion of such cases. Justice had been served for Satyavati and Sanvi, but nothing could bring them back or fully heal the wounds their families had suffered. This case taught me important lessons about the devastating effects of addiction and financial desperation, but also about the resilience of communities in the face of unimaginable tragedy. The Pennsylvania Native American community rallied around the Vyas family, providing support that continued long after the trial ended. Documentary. Neither Venkat nor Chinchilla ever thought that someone from their own country, someone they treated like family, could do such a terrible thing to them. This case shows us that when it comes to the ability to change color, humans have come a long way from chameleons.
Mr. Yanduri, any comment about what you're going to tell the judge today?
The Prasad family massacre left lasting impacts far beyond the immediate victims. As lead investigator, I continue to monitor the ripple effects throughout the community and the criminal justice system. Impact on family. Venkataka and Kinyalada's lives were forever changed by the tragedy. They eventually moved to California, seeking distance from the memories so deeply rooted in Pennsylvania. Venkataka later told me that they struggled with trust issues, especially in immigrant communities where mutual support is expected. Now, every neighbor feels like a potential threat. He confided in a follow-up interview. We have lost our innocence along with our family members. Community change. The Pennsylvania Native American community has taken several security measures following the incident. Strengthened background checks for community volunteers. Financial counseling services for stressed families. Support group for gambling addicts. Improved communication with local law enforcement. Legal precedent. The case is significant because it is the first time an Indian citizen has been sentenced to death in the United States. The case highlights several important legal issues: the intersection of immigration status and the death penalty, community-based crime in ethnic minority areas, the role of financial desperation in violent crime. Investigation lesson. From a law enforcement perspective, this case reinforces several important principles. The danger of too helpful witnesses. Ragunan's eagerness to help should have raised suspicions sooner. The importance of a financial background check. His gambling addiction is a major risk factor that could have been identified earlier. Benefits of community policing. Close ties with the Indian community are essential to solving crimes. While working with the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit, I participated in a comprehensive study of this case to identify potential prevention strategies for similar crimes. Psychology of the perpetrator. Dr. Sarah Martinez, a criminal psychologist, conducted extensive post-conviction interviews with Ragunan to understand his mental state leading up to the crime. Her findings revealed several key factors: risk escalation template, financial stress from gambling addiction, social isolation due to shame about debt, rationalizing crime as a temporary solution, loss of empathy due to excessive stress, point of no return after the first act of violence. Warning signs. The study identified several behavioral indicators that could alert community members or family to Ragunan's deteriorating mental condition. Increasingly social withdrawal despite seeming helpful. Financial instability. Buying expensive items, then borrowing small amounts of money. Unusual interest in other people's financial situation. Mood swings and increased irritability. Sleep disturbances and physical signs of stress. Prevention strategies. Based on this analysis, we have made recommendations for the immigrant community. Financial literacy and addiction counseling program. Community support network for individuals experiencing stress. Training to recognize the signs of dangerous psychological deterioration. Enhanced security protocols for vulnerable community members.
We had cooperation from Mrs. Venna, who actually went to a location that had been designated. We were hoping someone would arrive, but no one did.
As is expected in death penalty cases, Ragunan's legal team filed an appeal immediately after the verdict was announced. As the lead investigator, I was frequently asked to provide additional documents and testimony for appeal proceedings. Grounds for appeal. Defense attorneys raised several issues. Adequacy of legal representation during the initial proceedings. Mental health assessment process. The jury selection process in a famous case. Constitutional challenges to Pennsylvania's death penalty law. State Supreme Court review. In 2015, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court upheld the conviction and sentence, stating in their opinion, "The evidence against the defendant is compelling and was obtained through appropriate investigative procedures." The trial court handled the case in an exemplary manner, and the sentence is commensurate with the seriousness of the crimes. Federal appeals. The case then moved to federal court, where additional constitutional challenges were filed. This process, typical in death penalty cases, continued for years with various moves and countermoves. Current status. As of 2024, Ragunan Yanduri remains incarcerated at the State Correctional Facility in Greene, Pennsylvania. The appeals process continues, although legal experts believe the conviction is unlikely to be overturned given the overwhelming evidence. Personal visit. I visited Ragunan several times during the appeal, partly for purposes related to the case, but also out of professional curiosity about his mental state. During one visit in 2018, he told me, "I think about them every day, Satyavati and little Sanvi. If I could trade places with them, I would. But I know the world doesn't work that way." It remains unclear whether this remorse is sincere or strategic, but stands in stark contrast to the calculating man I arrested in 2012.
At 4:30 this morning, the body of Sanvi Venno was found. It was found here in Upper Merion, was found hidden inside of a sauna in a basement bathroom in the gymnasium of one of the marquee apartment buildings. We are also here right now to announce the arrest of her killer and her grandmother's killer, Ragunan Yanduri. Mr. Yanduri was a friend of the family, of the Venno family, someone known to them. We have filed charges of murder, kidnapping, robbery, burglary, abuse of corpse, and theft against Mr. Yanduri. What we have learned during the course of this investigation, and we only learned much of this over the past 24 hours, is that this individual had planned to kidnap Sanvi Venno, and he was going to hold her for ransom. When we arrived at the Venno home the other day, on Monday, we found a ransom note. There were actually 10 copies of an identical ransom note demanding $50,000. We learned from the defendant that he went to the home. He made an effort to kidnap the child. During the course of that event, he took the life of her grandmother. He then left the apartment building with the child suffocated with a handkerchief in her mouth and stuffed into a suitcase. He disposed of the body, and we found her tragically this morning.
The Prasad family case occurred during a transitional period in law enforcement technology. Looking back, several technological advances that occurred after 2012 may have accelerated our investigation. Advanced CCTV analytics, improved facial recognition software, automatic gait analysis system, AI-powered behavioral pattern recognition, cloud-based evidence sharing platform, the evolution of digital forensic science, advanced cell phone location tracking, social media behavior analysis, financial transaction monitoring system, encrypted media decryption tool, advanced forensic science, rapid DNA analysis, results in hours instead of days, improved trace evidence detection, advanced materials and fiber analysis, psychological analysis software, impact of training. The case has become a training scenario for detective academies across the United States. The combination of community-based crime, financial motivation, and victim vulnerability created an ideal educational framework for new investigators. I have personally presented this case study at over 30 law enforcement conferences, emphasizing the importance of building community relationships, financial background check, observing behavior in crisis situations, multi-jurisdictional cooperation, international recognition. The case has attracted the attention of law enforcement agencies around the world, especially in countries with significant immigrant populations. Interpol has included the case in its database of exemplary investigations, noting the effective integration of community policing and traditional detective work.
I want him to be crucified to the maximum, that's it.
It's hard to believe that such evil in the form of Raghu does really exist out there. To think the guy was actually among us in the vigil praying for the safe return, nothing can be more sickening than that.
After 30 years in law enforcement, the Prasad family murders remain one of the most important cases of my career. It challenged me professionally, emotionally, and ethically in a way that few other investigations have. Professional development. This case taught me invaluable lessons about the complexity of human motivation under extreme pressure, the importance of cultural sensitivity in diverse communities, the devastating effects of addiction on decision-making, the important role of public trust in successful investigations. Emotional impact. Working with the Vyas family in their darkest hours was both heartbreaking and inspiring. Their dignity in the face of unimaginable loss, their cooperation with our investigation despite their grief, and their ultimate forgiveness, though not of Ragunan, but of the circumstances that led to their tragedy, demonstrated the incredible resilience of human beings. Kinyalada once told me, "Detective, we cannot let hatred overwhelm us. Satyavati and Sanvi want us to find peace, not revenge." That conversation changed my perspective on justice. It's not just about punishment, but also about restoration and prevention. Community relations. This case has significantly improved police-community relations in Pennsylvania's Indian immigrant community. The successful investigation and prosecution demonstrated that law enforcement takes crimes against immigrants seriously and is capable of handling complex, culturally sensitive cases. The Through Police Department has since implemented several community outreach programs, regular meetings with ethnic community leaders, cultural sensitivity training for all officers, multilingual emergency service, community liaison officer position, legacy considerations. As I approach retirement, I often reflect on the cases that have shaped my career. The Prasad family massacre stands out not only for its brutality, but also for what it taught me about human tolerance for evil and resilience. Satyavati died protecting her niece. Sanvi's short life brought the community together in ways that transcended tragedy. Even Venkataka and Kinyalada, despite their tragic loss, chose to honor the memory of their loved ones through forgiveness and community service. These lessons go beyond law enforcement and address fundamental questions of trust, community, and the responsibility we all have for each other's well-being. The investigation into the Prasad family massacre ended with legal justice, but the broader implications continue to reverberate more than a decade later. The case demonstrates both the worst and best aspects of human nature, the devastating consequences of unchecked despair and addiction, along with the incredible resilience of communities facing unimaginable tragedy. Key points to remember. Financial desperation can drive decent people to do unthinkable things. Community trust, once broken, takes years to rebuild. Effective law enforcement depends on strong community relationships. Early intervention in addiction and financial crises can prevent tragic escalation. Justice is not only about punishment, but also about healing and prevention in the community. Final thoughts. Standing in the kitchen of that apartment on October 22nd, 2012, looking at Satyavati's body while knowing that baby Sanvi was missing, I could not have imagined the complex journey that lay ahead. The investigation would test every skill I had developed over more than 2 decades of police work, challenge my understanding of human nature, and ultimately reaffirm my commitment to justice. Ragunan Yanduri's actions are inexcusable, but understanding the factors that led to them helps us build systems to prevent similar tragedies. The Indian community in Pennsylvania is stronger and more united. The Vyas family, despite their loss, has sought to honor the memory of Satyavati and Sanvi through service to others. As I close this case file for the last time, I am reminded that justice is not just about solving crimes, but also about protecting communities, supporting victims, and building a society where families like the Vyas can pursue their dreams without fear. The small Throop apartment where this tragedy unfolded is now home to another family. Lives go on, dreams persist, and communities heal. But we must never forget the lessons learned from Satyavati's courage, Sanvi's innocence, and the community's response to unimaginable loss. That is the real legacy of this case, not just the successful prosecution of a murderer, but a reminder that even in the darkest of times, humanity and community solidarity can light the way forward.